Once upon a time, I was young. I was working in an international school in Dhaka. I had friends from all over the world, expat community. We were singing, dancing, working. Life was full. And that's when I met him, a friend of a friend at a party. Now, he wasn't the loudest guy, but he was sharp. A tech guy visiting from Canada, a Bengali student visiting on his break. So we talked, it clicked, and we started seeing each other more and more. One night, I had a huge fight at home, and I needed a place to crash. So he offered me his new office for the night, and then another, and another, and another. Soon the space became our own hub of friends and laughter, hangouts, and in between it all was us. Wanna get married was a random question. And with a few friends as witnesses, we did it, plain and simple. Or so my naive youth thought. The honeymoon period was really great, but he wouldn't want to spend the nights. And he would have excuses of, oh, my parents need me to be there, I have work, friends. And slowly he started disappearing and ghosting me. Everything seemed really hollow. So in my deep frustration, I asked one of the cleaners, do you know where he is? And he said, without any hesitation, oh, I think he's with the other wife and the newborn. Other wife and newborn? Then who was I? And suddenly I became the other woman. And it turns out that he really was visiting from Canada, but he was accompanying his pregnant wife who needed to be near her family in Bangladesh. And I had become the scapegoat. So the endless fights and sleepless nights carried on until one day he was gone forever, just like that, into thin air. And he became the hollow man. I moved out of that apartment and moved in with a friend because I wasn't speaking to my parents at the time. And my period stopped, and I was expecting. Now, I had spent my whole life feeling disconnected. In my adolescence, my divorced parents, who were academics, had brought me back from Australia, so I always felt like a fish out of water. And I wanted to build my own family, have something to call my own, have somebody to call my own. So when the question came, it wasn't even a question. I was having this baby, even if it meant to have it alone. So the lonely, yet beautiful pregnancy was spent with my best friend and dog, Yahoo, and a housekeeper, a young girl called Rekha. My mother, she had rented out this small apartment for us near the hospital, and there was everything provided by her, but she wasn't there. She had left on one of her academic expeditions off to save the world again. Now, loneliness wasn't a new friend of mine, but I didn't feel alone, if you know what I mean. And I spent my time doing pregnancy photo shoots. I went on baby shopping sprees and went on long walks with my dog, made friends with the neighborhood kids, and learned some housework from Rekha. But when the time came, I was alone in that delivery room. No hands to hold, and no reassuring voices. A friend had dropped me off from a party, but when the doctors came with little Nirvan and dropped him in my hands, I had two hands to hold forever. After 22 days, there was a letter that came to my dad's house, crisp, very official, and merciless. It stated that my son was illegitimate, and the marriage was null because the laws in Bangladesh state if the first wife doesn't have the signature on the second marriage, it makes it null and the child illegitimate. Now, my father, he was furious at me during this whole period, and he didn't speak to me. But he called me, and I picked up, and he said, "You need to come home because we're not going to be standing for this. My grandson is not illegitimate." Now, I was so exhausted. I was tired. I didn't want to go through a new war. I was just enjoying my newfound motherhood. But he wouldn't back down because this was about Nirvan now. So in the next few months and the next few years, 10 years, we spent in the courtrooms as our second home. But as Nirvan's little voice started asking those questions, "Where's Daddy, Mommy? Doesn't he love us? Why isn't he coming?" I held those hands and I promised, I'm going to find this person and I am going to answer these questions. Because some questions need to be answered, some names need to be reclaimed, and some truths need to be established. I understood what that meant now. So throughout the years, I had been following digital breadcrumbs, trying to find the hollow man. But how do you find somebody who doesn't want to be found? Messages unread, accounts closed, names that were said in passing, nothing. He had vanished into thin air. But the beauty of digital footprints is that it leads you somewhere, doesn't it? So the search party got bigger. Friends, acquaintances, acquaintances of acquaintances. And one day, I got a phone call from a friend living in Toronto. And they said, "I found this page on Instagram, and it's a fusion Bengali catering service. It seems to be like the name to the owner is similar to the wife." Was this her? Was this really her? I didn't know. So my stalking little fingers on that keyboard were there for months, trying to look for a clue, trying to look for something. But somewhere in the back of my head, I always had a question. Did she know? Does she know? And after a few months, another magical phone call, and my friend says, "Hey, she gave out her address." What? She gave out her address? What does that mean? So it seems to be like there was a storm in Toronto. And in that storm, this client, they didn't want to get the food delivered to them. They wanted to come and pick it up. And on my screen, 1,000 miles away, was that address, something, Grand Forest Drive, Bari. This was it. I knew it. It was my gut feeling. I knew it that this was it. So my friends, out of their curiosity, they drove past the house and tried to look for clues or something, but nothing. But I knew. I knew it in my heart. So we crossed the 7 seas along with 1,000 more obstacles, and we were there in New York, Plattsburgh. And I held those two little hands that I had promised to hold forever, and we crossed Roxham Road. And we were in Montreal, 2019, December. Now, the Quebec government wouldn't let me file a case because they need you to be separate from your partner for 1 whole year. I kept saying, "Hello, I only knew this person for 4 months, and I haven't lived with him for a whole decade." But no, a rule is a rule. So I waited. And in 2020, the year of the COVID, where the whole world changed, my world changed as well. And I went knocking from legal aid office to legal aid office, trying to plea and pledge my case. Please take the case. Hello, this is an Instagram address, for Christ's sake. But after many teardrops, the case was taken. And a bailiff went knocking on that door. And I believe it was a stormy night, just like in the movies, right? And it opened. It was the hollow man. Now, Nirvan got all his questions answered, but I haven't met this person till date. We only exist through court documents and emails, And the web made me find him, and hence we live on the ether ever after.